I was standing in the snack aisle with my dad, Marcus Rowan, trying to decide between popcorn or chips for our movie night. Everything felt normal until a small hand grabbed my sleeve. I turned and saw a boy about 8 years old staring up at me. His voice shook as he whispered, "That's not your real daddy." My heart jumped. Before I could ask what he meant, my dad rushed over, pale and shaking. He leaned down and said in a low voice, "Do not look back. Run to the car." I listened. I ran out of the store and jumped into the passenger seat. I locked the doors and tried to breathe. When I checked the rearview mirror, I froze. My dad was still inside the store. Someone else wearing his jacket was walking straight toward the car. My name is Leah Rowan. I grew up in a quiet town called Cedar Brook, the kind of place where people wave at each other from front porches, and everyone knows who belongs where. I lived with my dad, Marcus, who raised me on his own after my mom, Rena, passed away when I was little. He was the type of father who always showed up, always protected me, and always made me feel safe enough to believe nothing bad could touch us. Every Saturday night, he and I had our movie tradition. We picked a movie, grabbed snacks, and turned our living room into a little theater. It was our time to laugh, talk, and forget everything else. That day started the same as usual, but something about Dad felt different. He kept checking his watch and glancing around the store as if waiting for something he didn't want to see. I figured he was just tired from work. I never imagined he was scared. I never imagined he thought someone was watching us. I never imagined a complete stranger would tell me the one sentence that split my world open. Inside the store, I wandered a few steps away to grab candy. The lighting was warm, the music was soft, and nothing felt unusual until the boy stepped in front of me. His clothes were dirty, and he looked like he had been crying for hours. His whisper was quick and shaky, like he was afraid someone might hear him. "That's not your real daddy." His words hit me like a punch. I didn't even know him. Why would he say something like that? I barely had time to react because my dad appeared out of nowhere and placed a tight hand on my shoulder. I felt the tension in his grip. His voice was quiet but filled with urgency. "Do not look back. Run to the car." When I sprinted outside, I thought he was right behind me. That is why I locked the doors and tried to calm myself down. What I saw in the mirror turned my fear into something sharp and cold. My dad was still inside the store talking to a worker, so who was walking toward me wearing his jacket? The figure raised a hand as if asking me to roll down the window. Something inside me told me to stay still and silent. Everything that had felt normal seconds earlier suddenly felt wrong. The moment I saw the man in my dad's jacket walking toward the car, everything inside me tightened. His hood was pulled low over his forehead, and his steps were slow and strange, like he wanted to appear calm but could not hide his excitement. I kept my hands tight around the seatbelt strap and tried to convince myself I was imagining things, but every part of me kept saying something was wrong. He reached the door and tapped on the glass with a soft clicking sound that made my stomach twist. His voice was calm, almost friendly, but not my father's voice. He said, "Leah, honey, unlock the door." I sat frozen, staring straight ahead, afraid to even breathe too loudly. I wanted to scream, but fear pinned me in place. The doors were locked, but I suddenly felt like they were thin pieces of plastic that could break at any second. The man leaned closer and placed his hand on the door handle as if testing whether I had forgotten to lock it. Seeing his fingers curl around the handle made my heartbeat pound so fast I felt dizzy. I kept waiting for someone from the parking lot to notice, but everyone was busy bagging groceries or loading cars, unaware that I was seconds away from something I did not even understand. Inside the store, through the glass, I could see my real dad's reflection moving near the counter, talking urgently with two workers. He was still inside. He had never come out. That meant the man outside the car was someone else entirely. The boy's warning played again in my head, and my mind spun with fear and confusion. If this man was not my dad, then why was he wearing my dad's jacket, and why did he know my name? The man tapped the glass harder, losing his gentle tone. His voice took on a sharper edge. "Leah," I said, "unlock the door. We need to go." The word "we" sent a rush of cold through my chest. I understood then that he wanted something from me, something terrifying enough that he tried to sound like someone I knew. I pushed myself lower in the seat and kept my eyes on the store doors, hoping my dad would walk out and fix everything like he always did. For a second, the man stopped tapping and looked around the parking lot, scanning the area as if checking whether anyone was paying attention. Then he tried the door again with a quick jerk that made the car shake. That movement snapped me out of my paralysis, and I realized staying in the car was the worst mistake I could make. I unbuckled my seatbelt and grabbed the door handle on my side. I knew the moment I opened it, he would notice, but I had no time left. I threw the door open, jumped out, and ran toward the store as fast as my legs could carry me. Behind me, I heard him shout something angry, but I did not turn around. I pushed through the store doors and nearly collided with a woman and a young boy. It was the same boy who had warned me. His mother grabbed his shoulders protectively and moved him behind her. She had a tense expression and seemed scared herself. She looked at me with urgency and asked, "Did he try to get you too?" Her voice sounded shaken, like this was not the first time she had asked that question. Before I could answer, I saw my dad rushing out from a back hallway with 2 store employees. His eyes widened when he saw me. He wrapped his arm around me and held me tight, then asked, "Why did you leave the car?" His voice cracked with worry, and I could tell he already suspected the answer. I told him someone who was not him tried to get me to unlock the door. His face went stiff with anger and fear. The woman who had been protecting the boy stepped forward and told my dad that a man had approached her son earlier asking strange questions, and she believed it was the same man outside. The boy nodded and pointed toward the parking lot, whispering that the man had shown him a picture of me. Everything inside me spiraled. My dad told the employees to call the sheriff while he guided me toward the back of the store, away from the windows. He kept his hand on my shoulder, steady but tense, as if expecting danger to burst through the front doors at any moment. I could feel that whatever was happening ran deeper than a misunderstanding. My dad knew more than he had ever told me, and whoever that man was, he was not a random stranger. He had been looking for me, and my dad had known this day might come. When my dad led me toward the back of the store, a deep instinct inside me kept saying we were not safe, not even with the walls around us. I could still feel the panic in my chest from the parking lot, and the image of that man pulling at the car door stayed burned in my mind. Dad kept his hand on my shoulder, strong and steady, but I could feel the tension in his grip. He was trying hard to stay calm for me, yet every small movement he made showed the fear he carried. As we reached the stockroom door, one of the employees called out and said the sheriff was on the way. Dad nodded but did not slow down. The woman with the young boy followed us, insisting that the man had been hanging around the store for several days and had asked multiple people about a teenage girl with dark hair and a green backpack. Hearing that made my stomach twist because that was exactly what I was wearing. My dad turned to her and asked if she knew where the man had gone. She said he disappeared behind the row of cars after I ran inside. Dad's eyes darkened, and he told her thank you while gently pulling me through the employee-only door. It was the first time I ever saw him look genuinely afraid, and that scared me even more. Inside the stockroom, the fluorescent lights buzzed quietly, giving the room a cold, tense feeling. My dad crouched in front of me and asked if the man outside had touched me or said anything else. I shook my head, but I told him the man tried to sound like him and knew my name. Dad closed his eyes for a moment, and I could tell he was fighting back anger. When he opened them, he said we needed to leave through the back exit, not the front. I asked why we could not just wait for the sheriff. His answer came slow and heavy as he said, "Because he has been following us for a long time, and I don't want him anywhere near you again." The words hit me hard. I grabbed his arm and demanded to know what he meant, but instead of explaining, he took my hand and said we had to move. We pushed through boxes and shelves toward the rear door. Every small sound from the front of the store made my heart jump. I kept imagining the man slipping inside unnoticed, walking between aisles, looking for me. When we reached the back exit, Dad stopped and turned to the woman who had followed us. He told her to stay inside with her son until the sheriff arrived and to keep the door locked. She thanked him and told him to be careful. The boy gave me a scared look, and I could tell he felt guilty for not warning me sooner. I forced a small nod to tell him it was not his fault. My dad pushed open the heavy metal door, and we stepped into the alley behind the store. The air felt colder, and the quiet made the fear even sharper. Dad kept my hand in his and walked quickly toward the end of the alley where it opened into a small side street. He was scanning every shadow, every corner, as if expecting someone to appear. When we reached his truck, parked behind a garage, he placed me in the passenger seat and told me to lock the door. He walked around to the driver's side but paused with his hand on the door handle. His face held a decision he did not want to make. I knew he could not hide the truth any longer. When he got in and started the truck, he said he was going to drive us straight to the sheriff's station. I stared at him and asked again what he meant when he said the man had been following us for a long time. He gripped the steering wheel and finally answered, "I should have told you sooner, but I wanted you to feel like a normal kid. That man believes he has a claim on you, and he has tried before to get close to you. I thought I could keep you safe without pulling you into it." His voice broke slightly at the end, like he hated every word he had to say. Hearing the truth filled me with both fear and anger. I wanted to understand, but I also wanted him to drive faster. I felt the truck pick up speed, and for the first time in my life, I saw my dad as someone not just trying to protect me, but someone terrified he might lose me if he made a wrong move. That fear pushed him to finally choose full honesty, and it pushed me to stay alert beside him. The turning point was no longer about running from danger. It was about facing a truth that would change the way I saw my life, my family, and everything I thought was safe. As my dad drove us toward the sheriff's station, my mind spun with everything he had just revealed, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. The road stretched ahead in a long, straight line, and the town lights flickered against the windows as we sped toward safety. My dad kept glancing into the mirrors, checking behind us again and again, each time with more tension in his jaw. I watched him and could tell he was carrying years of fear and secrets that he kept locked away to protect me. After several minutes, he finally began to explain the truth in full. He told me the man who tried to get into the car was named Raiden Cole, someone my mom had dated for a short time before she met my dad. Raiden had become obsessed with the idea that he was supposed to be my father, even though he had no connection to me at all. When my mom left him, he became unstable and started following her. After she died, he turned his attention to me, convinced I belonged to him. My dad said Raiden had taken photos of me at school, watched our house from a distance, and even tried to lure me years ago when I was too young to understand any of it. My dad had worked with the police multiple times, but Raiden always vanished before they could catch him. Hearing all of this made my stomach tighten because it meant the man in the parking lot had not appeared out of nowhere. He had been waiting for the right chance. As we got closer to the sheriff's station, the streetlights grew brighter, and I felt a small sense of hope creeping in. But then something on the left side of the road snapped my attention. A dark car pulled out from a side street and started following us. My dad saw it too. He pressed his foot harder on the gas and told me to stay down. I lowered myself in the seat, gripping the door handle as fear rushed through me. The other car stayed close, turning whenever we turned, speeding up when we did, keeping a frighteningly steady distance. My dad made a sharp turn into the station parking lot, and the other car pulled in right behind us. Without wasting a second, my dad shouted for me to run inside while he tried to block the other car with our truck. I pushed open the door and ran toward the building with my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Behind me, I heard the sound of tires skidding and a car door slamming. I did not dare look back. I reached the entrance, and a deputy inside saw the panic on my face and opened the door for me. As I stepped inside, I heard a loud shout from the parking lot, a voice I recognized as the same one that tried to lure me in the car. He yelled my name with a force that made every hair on my arms stand up. I turned just enough to see him being held down by two officers who had rushed outside when they saw our truck swing into the lot. They were trying to pull him away from the doors while he kicked and screamed, insisting I was his daughter and demanding they let him go. his face twisted with anger, and his eyes locked on me through the glass, like he believed he had some right to me. Seeing him like that, wild and desperate, made the fear inside me push deeper than ever, because I realized how far he would have gone if he had reached me first. My dad ran toward us, breathless but steady, and wrapped his arm around my shoulders as the officers forced Raiden into a patrol car. Even as they closed the door and drove him toward a holding area at the back of the station, I could still hear him shouting my name through the metal and glass. It felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's nightmare. My dad kept his arm around me and guided me farther inside the building while several deputies asked us questions about what had happened. I could barely form words at first, still shaken by the intensity of the moment. When Raiden's shouting finally faded into silence, the weight of everything crashed down on me, and I realized how close I had been to losing my entire life in one terrifying afternoon. Standing inside the sheriff's station, surrounded by officers and my dad's protective presence, I felt a mix of relief and shock washing over me. The big reveal was no longer hidden in whispers or warnings. It stood right in front of me, undeniable and terrifying. The man who had haunted the edges of my life was finally caught, and for the first time, the danger I had never known existed was fully visible. Inside the sheriff's station, after Raiden was taken into a back holding area, the world around me began to slow down. My legs shook, and my hands would not stay still, but my dad kept a steady grip on my shoulder as deputies guided us to a small interview room. The bright overhead lights made the room feel colder, and the metal chair squeaked as I sat down. I watched my dad sit across from me, and for the first time, I saw how exhausted he looked. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, and his eyes heavy with years of fear he had carried alone. When the deputies began asking questions, he answered calmly, explaining every detail he had kept hidden for so long. Hearing him speak with such control made me realize how hard he had fought to protect me without ever letting me feel how much danger we were in. As the deputies took notes, one of them looked at me gently and asked how I was feeling. The question opened something inside me that I had held in since the parking lot. My voice shook as I told them how scared I had been when the man tried to open the door, how confused I felt when my dad told me to run, and how the boy's warning had not made sense until the moment I saw the wrong man in the mirror. The deputy nodded with sympathy and told me that fear was normal and that I had done the right thing by running inside. Hearing those words helped calm the storm inside me, but I could still feel the weight of everything pressing on my chest. When the deputies left the room to speak with the sheriff, I turned to my dad and asked why he kept it all from me. The answer came slower than I expected. He said he wanted me to grow up feeling safe, not waking up every day worrying about someone who refused to let us live peacefully. He thought if he watched closely enough, prepared quietly enough, and worked with the police, he could keep Raiden away without ever letting the darkness touch my life. He admitted it was the hardest secret he had ever carried, because each time Raiden surfaced, the fear of losing me grew stronger. Hearing him say that made my eyes sting, because it showed me the kind of love he had given me my entire life. Not perfect love, but brave love. Love that pushed him to stand between me and a threat I never knew existed. I reached across the table and took his hand, telling him I trusted him, even if the truth hurt. His shoulders loosened, and he gave me a soft, relieved smile that I had not seen all day. The sheriff came in a few minutes later and explained that Raiden would be held on multiple charges, including attempted kidnapping and harassment. The sheriff also told us they found photos in his car that proved he had been following me for months. Hearing that made my stomach sink, but it also made me realize how lucky I was that everything happened in public, where people could help. The sheriff assured us the case would move quickly because the evidence was strong, and Raiden had been on their radar for years. After the sheriff left, my dad asked if I was ready to go home. The idea of going home felt strange at first, like home might not feel the same knowing someone had been watching us. But I also knew home was where I felt safe, and being with my dad mattered more than any fear that tried to control me. When we stepped outside, the night air felt cooler, and the parking lot was quiet, except for a few officers talking near the patrol cars. I looked around carefully, half expecting Raiden to somehow appear, but my dad told me it was safe and that he would not let anything happen to me. I believed him. The drive home was quiet, but the silence between us was warm and full of a new kind of understanding. When we walked inside the house, our living room still had the blankets we had planned to use for movie night. For a moment, I thought about how different the day would have been without that warning from the boy, without my dad's fast reaction, without the officers who stepped in. I sank into the couch, and my dad sat next to me, and for the first time since the chaos began, I let myself breathe fully. I realized I could have lost everything, but instead, I gained clarity about the strength of the man who raised me. He did not need to be connected to me by blood to be my real father. He proved it through every moment of protection, sacrifice, and love he had shown since the day I was born. As I leaned against him, I understood that the world could be frightening and unpredictable, but having someone who fights for you is the greatest safety you can have. That night, before I went to sleep, I decided that fear would not define me. What happened changed me, but it also taught me the value of truth, trust, and the kind of courage that grows only when life forces you to face the unknown. If you are watching this, remember to cherish the people who stand between you and danger, because they are the ones who hold your world together when everything else tries to fall apart. If you want more stories like this, make sure you subscribe and comment where you are watching from.